Hello, I'm Diana Taylor, and as chairperson of St. Andrew's Church Council, I would like to thank you for watching this very important video. As most of you recall, last summer, Pastor Jonathan created a video and sent it out to the congregation discussing our financial concerns here at the church. Soon following that, our finance team wrote a letter to the congregation, and in that letter, they detailed our financial deficit for 2021. A lot of you were able to respond by giving above and beyond your normal pledges, and this has allowed us to hold steady for the last couple of months. I'd like to thank you so much for helping with that. I'd like to share with you some of the ways that we have reduced expenses here at the church. Church officers have done an excellent job of reducing expenses. If something needed to be done, they looked at it and they re-looked at it. And if it wasn't absolutely necessary, the decision was made not to do it. Another way that we have reduced expenses, it was a difficult decision, but the church council made the decision to suspend making apportionment payments. Most of you know that our church secretary retired earlier this year. That was another difficult decision, not to replace her. Our church staff came up to the bat and they started taking over the responsibilities of our secretary. This includes Jonathan, Melanie, and Craig. Also, we have lots of volunteers that come in every week to make sure that the office is running properly. And I'd like to thank the volunteers for doing this. We have prepared the budget. The budget has been prepared for 2022, and I'll share that it's been reduced 15%. This is because the leaders of our church are doing all they can do to help our situation. Although we hope to launch a ministry this fall and get things going and just new things were going to happen this fall. We were going to be back, but we are facing a new wave of COVID. Our virtual ministries have been instrumental in keeping us going, but we all know that the pandemic has stifled our ability to grow as much as we had hoped to. During our August church council meeting, we discussed our situation and we acknowledged that over the past 2 decades, our attendance and our pledges have continued to decline. And we decided that it was time for us to enter a time for a discernment process for our future. It's important to keep in mind that there are other churches going through the same situation that we are. They're struggling, they're having to make hard decisions, and also on the conference level, there's been lots of changes this year. Our bishop has taken on the shared responsibility of supervising 2 conferences in addition to West Virginia. Our superintendent is now responsible for more than 1 district. The pandemic has brought on challenges that most of us could never have dreamed of, never imagined. We've had to adjust. And unfortunately, the pandemic, we don't know when it's going to end. Wanting to be good stewards of our church, we decided to enter a discernment process by inviting our district superintendent, Joe Hill, to meet with us. That meeting was held via Zoom on September the 8th. One of the first things Joe did was praise St. Andrew for everything that they've done during the pandemic to try to keep things moving. He praised us about our small group ministry, that he said under his supervision that we're growing at a rate that no other churches are. Joe went on to talk to us about a traditional path for declining congregations. He said that this path often includes a process of pastoral transition. It includes restructuring of staff. The church is also often placed on a charge with other churches where they share a minister. Joe said that this typically leads to church closure. However, Joe also challenged us to consider a more non-traditional model, which would include liquidating our assets, starting over without the overhead of cost of our building. This model would include weekly gatherings at a rented space, and it would be very dependent on small group ministries. As you can imagine, this was a whole lot of information for us to take in, as I know it's a lot of information for you to take in today. Joe asked us to think about it, pray about it, talk about it, and then get back together. He said, get back together and discuss and reflect. Our church council is working to do what's best for our church, and now we're turning to you. We all need to work through this together. Please remember that this is a discernment time. There are a lot of uncertainties about the future. These are unprecedented times. The church council wants to communicate with the entire congregation so that we can all work through this together. There's two things that we always need to remember. God is with us, and our mission is to make disciples. You know, there's all kinds of good things happening here at St. Andrew. For the last 18 months, many of you have worshiped online. Many of you have worshiped at our drive-in services. We have developed our new ministry, The Table, which has been quite successful. And of course, our small group ministry. We have over 60 people participating in our small group ministry. Again, as I mentioned before, our district superintendent, Joe Hill, praises us for all this. We have learned to be a church outside the walls of the building. Realistically, many of you want to return to in-person worship when you feel comfortable, when you feel safe about it. But many of you have learned to adapt to the changes that have been brought on by the pandemic. As we look into the future, we believe that God has a plan for us, but we are coming to you asking for your help discerning how God is calling us to carry out this plan. During our October Church Council meeting, which was just this week, we acknowledged that our facility is large, inefficient, and currently underutilized. Although we cannot predict the future, it is unlikely that things will ever return to the way we remember them as far as group gatherings and attendance, in light of all the virtual options. However, that's just one piece of the puzzle. We have to think, what does it look for us to be good stewards of what God has given us? How can we make disciples of Jesus Christ in a way that is sustainable for the next generation? I'm sure a lot of you already have questions in your head. You might be thinking, well, why don't we sell or parcel out the land up on the hill? Or maybe we need to look at the dollars we have in the conference funds. Look at the restricted funds. Could we use some of these dollars for routine operating expenses? How long can we realistically maintain our property? This is why we are coming to you today. We need your thoughts, and questions during this discernment process. Never before have we experienced a pandemic. Again, we come to you during these unprecedented times. These are very difficult discussions to have, but I pray that we can do it with the spirit and mind of Christ. Due to the restrictions and limitations imposed by COVID, it's really difficult to meet in person. So we are inviting you to a meeting on Sunday, October the 17th at 2 o'clock here at the church, and it will be a drive-in style. We're asking you to come with your questions, have your questions written down. There'll be people here from church council to collect your questions. If it's a question that we can answer right off, we'll answer it. If not, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We'll share these questions with everybody that's in attendance that day. Also, we'll have an opportunity on Sunday, December the 6th at 7:30 p.m. to discuss the options and opportunities at our church conference with our district superintendent, Joe Hill. If you're unable to attend the meeting, I invite you to send questions to me. My email address is houseoftaylor@gmail.com. We're hoping that you think about it, talk about it, pray about it. This is a very, very important discernment process. Again, please pray to God. Open your hearts, open your minds to hear His words. Thank you for listening to me today, and I send all my love and blessings to each and every one of you.